The icy winds of Alaris Prime howled outside the grand crystal hall, where the peace conference was about to begin. Inside, the air was heavy with tension. Bright banners of two worlds, human and alien, hung from the ceiling, but even their colors could not hide the silent unease between the gathered leaders. For years, war had burned across the stars, leaving scars that no treaty could easily erase. Now, for the first time, humans and aliens stood in the same room, pretending that peace was possible. Princess Lyra walked slowly through the shining doors, her silver gown whispering against the smooth floor. Every step echoed like a heartbeat. Her people had waited for this day, an end to war, a new beginning. But inside her chest, fear fluttered like a trapped bird. She was not just a princess today. She was a symbol of hope, yet she could not stop the memories that clawed at her mind, the screams, the fire. The night her home burned because of human soldiers. Her guards followed closely, their armor glowing faintly blue, but Lyra barely noticed them. Her eyes moved across the human delegation standing on the opposite side of the hall. They looked so different from her people. Tall, pale, wrapped in cold metal uniforms. The leader, Admiral Keen, stood at the center, his expression unreadable. Around him were officers and diplomats, faces sharp with suspicion, and then she saw him. A man stood slightly behind the admiral, quiet, not speaking, his gaze fixed on the shimmering table that divided both sides. His uniform was dark gray, his shoulders broad, his hair slightly tousled as if he had been awake all night. For a moment, Lyra thought her heart had stopped. The lights above glimmered against his badge, and she could read the name. Captain Ryan Hale, Ryan. The name struck her like lightning. Memories flooded her mind. Flashes of fire. The choking smoke of war. Her small hands trembling as she hid behind broken walls. She remembered being a frightened child, only 9 years old, trapped beneath debris while human soldiers stormed the city. And then, someone had lifted the wreckage, a human soldier with kind eyes and a bleeding arm. He had told her to run, his voice calm even as chaos surrounded them. He had saved her life and vanished before she could thank him. Now that same man stood only a few meters away, unaware of who she was. Lyra's breath hitched. She felt her pulse in her ears. Her throat tightened as she tried to steady herself. She was not that scared child anymore. She was a princess trained to show no weakness. But seeing him again after all these years broke through every wall she had built around her heart. Ryan seemed different now, older. His face carried the weight of battles fought and losses buried. There was something cold in his eyes, a shadow that had not been there before. He did not glance her way, not even once, though her gaze lingered on him longer than it should have. The alien ministers began speaking in calm tones, discussing treaties, borders, reparations. Words of peace echoed through the hall, but Lyra heard none of it. She could only watch Ryan, trying to understand if he truly did not remember her or if he was pretending. Could it be possible that the man who had saved her life had forgotten that moment completely? Her hands trembled slightly as she clasped them in front of her. She could feel the weight of every eye in the hall, every expectation of her people. She forced herself to look composed. A princess could not show fear, not even in front of the humans who once destroyed her world. But inside, a storm raged. She wanted to speak to him, to ask if he remembered the little alien girl he had saved from the flames. She wanted to thank him for giving her life when so many others had lost theirs. Yet something in his face told her that time had changed him. Maybe the war had hardened his heart, made him forget compassion. As the meeting continued, Ryan finally lifted his gaze, and for one brief second, their eyes met. The world seemed to stop. Lyra froze in place, her breath catching in her chest. His eyes were the same color she remembered, steel gray with a flicker of warmth beneath the surface. For a heartbeat, something flashed in his expression, as if a memory stirred deep inside him, but then it was gone. He looked away, expressionless, as if she were just another alien representative. The pain in Lyra's chest deepened. When the conference ended for the day, she walked out slowly, her guards following behind. Outside the hall, the twin suns of Alaris cast pale light over the icy horizon. Her steps faltered as she turned back one last time. Through the tall glass walls, she saw Ryan speaking with his commander, his posture straight, his eyes calm. He truly didn't recognize her. A chill ran through her, not from the cold air but from the ache inside. Years ago, that human had risked his life to save a frightened child. And now, standing before her, he didn't even know who she was. She whispered softly to herself, almost like a secret only the wind could hear. How could he forget the child he once risked his life to protect? And as the sun dipped below the frozen mountains, the Princess of Alaris stood in silence, her heart trembling with a mix of hope, sorrow, and something far more dangerous. Something that would soon change both their worlds forever. The night after the peace conference, the alien city of Alaris Prime slept beneath a blanket of silver light. The twin moons glowed softly over the palace towers, their reflection shimmering across the frozen lakes. Inside her chamber, Princess Lyra stood by the tall glass window, staring at the stars. Her mind refused to rest. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him, Captain Ryan Hale, the human who once saved her life. She placed her hand over her chest, feeling her heart still racing from the encounter. The man she had dreamed of thanking for years now stood so close yet so impossibly far. He had looked through her as if she were a stranger. That simple moment, his blank gaze, hurt more than any wound she had ever known. Lyra turned away from the window. Her reflection in the glass looked fragile, not like the strong princess her people expected her to be. She had spent years learning to speak with power, to lead with wisdom, to hide her emotions. But tonight she felt like that lost child again, standing in the ruins of her home with smoke and fire all around. Her mind drifted back to that day. The day everything changed. The sky had been red. Burning ships filled the air as the human army invaded her city. The ground shook as explosions ripped through the streets. Lyra remembered running, her tiny feet slipping on the ashes, calling out for her mother. But no one answered. The royal guards had told her to hide, to stay quiet. She had crawled under broken beams, clutching a small silver pendant. She was crying when she saw him, a human soldier covered in dust and blood. At first she thought he would kill her. His weapon was raised, his eyes scanning for threats. But when their eyes met, his expression changed. He saw a terrified child, not an enemy. He threw aside his weapon and rushed to lift the burning debris that trapped her leg. His hands were bleeding, yet he didn't stop. "It's okay," he had said softly, his voice shaking. "You're safe now. Run, and don't look back." She had wanted to say something, to ask his name, but he was already turning away, running back into the fire. That moment was burned into her soul, the moment she learned that kindness could exist even among enemies. Back in the present, Lyra touched her necklace, the same silver pendant she had worn that day. It was all she had left of her childhood and of him. A soft knock broke her thoughts. Her maid, Tira, entered quietly. "Your Highness," she said gently, "the council meets again at dawn. You should rest." Lyra nodded, forcing a faint smile. "Yes, I will." But she didn't rest. When Tira left, Lyra wrapped herself in a cloak and slipped out of her chambers. The palace corridors were quiet, guarded only by silent drones. She moved like a shadow through the hallways until she reached the observation deck that overlooked the human camp. Down below, lights shimmered where the human ships had landed. She saw soldiers moving, machines humming softly. And near one of the ships she spotted him, Captain Ryan. He was alone, sitting on a metal crate staring at the frozen horizon. His helmet lay beside him and the cold wind brushed through his dark hair. Lyra's heart clenched. What was he thinking? Did he ever remember the war? Did he ever think of the lives he saved or took? She wanted to go down there to speak to him, but she couldn't. Her people would never understand. A princess meeting a human soldier in secret. It would destroy the fragile peace they had built. So she just watched him from afar, the way one might watch a star they could never touch. Ryan's face looked tired, haunted. When another officer approached, he stood and saluted sharply, his calm expression returning like a mask. But Lyra had seen the truth in his eyes, pain, regret, loneliness. She whispered to herself, "You still carry the fire of that day, don't you?" The next morning, the peace talks resumed. The air was colder, the tension stronger. Humans and aliens spoke through careful words, every sentence wrapped in false smiles. Lyra sat beside her ministers trying to focus, but her attention kept slipping toward the human side of the table. Ryan stood silently near the admiral, his hands behind his back. When one of the human diplomats insulted her people, Lyra saw Ryan's jaw tighten. His eyes flickered toward her, just for a moment, as if he wanted to speak but couldn't. Later, during a break, Lyra walked through the garden outside the hall. The air smelled faintly of ice flowers. She was lost in thought when a faint sound made her stop. Footsteps behind her. She turned quickly. It was Ryan. He froze too, clearly surprised to see her alone. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was heavy, filled with everything unspoken. "Your Highness," he said finally, his voice firm but respectful. "I didn't mean to intrude." Lyra's lips parted, but words failed her. All the questions she had, all the things she wanted to say, tangled inside her chest. She managed a small nod. "You're not intruding, Captain." He hesitated. "You were watching last night," he said quietly, not as an accusation but a statement. Lyra blinked, caught off guard. "How did you—" He gave a faint, almost tired smile. "I've been trained to notice when someone's watching." For the first time, she saw a trace of the man she remembered, the one who once smiled through fire and pain. Before she could speak again, a call echoed from the hall. The peace meeting was about to resume. Ryan saluted and turned to leave. As he walked away, Lyra whispered softly, "Do you truly not remember me?" He paused, just for a second, but didn't turn around. Then he kept walking, leaving her standing in the cold garden, her heart heavy with new questions and a strange, growing ache that she could not name. She looked up at the pale sky and whispered to the wind, "One day you will remember." The days that followed passed in uneasy silence. The peace conference continued, but Princess Lyra could feel the tension thickening with every meeting. Every smile exchanged between human and alien leaders felt forced. Every promise of peace sounded hollow. The air itself carried suspicion. Lyra sat through each discussion with calm grace, but her thoughts were elsewhere, always circling back to Captain Ryan Hale. He was quiet, disciplined, and distant, yet something about him pulled her in. She had convinced herself that he didn't remember her, but sometimes when their eyes met across the room she saw a flicker, a shadow of recognition. The flicker was enough to keep her heart restless. One evening, long after the council had ended, Lyra stayed behind in the grand hall. The lights dimmed and only the glow from the crystal chandeliers remained. She walked toward the center table where peace documents lay scattered. Her fingers brushed the cool surface, but her mind wandered to Ryan again. His voice, his eyes, his silence. "Tira," she said softly as her maid approached. "Find out where the human soldiers are stationed at night." Tira hesitated. "Your Highness." "You shouldn't—" "I'm not asking as a princess," Lyra interrupted, her tone calm but firm. "I'm asking as someone who needs to understand what kind of man that captain really is." The maid lowered her head. "As you command." That night, Lyra slipped through the hidden passages of the palace, wrapped in a dark cloak. The hallways were silent except for the faint hum of alien security drones. Her feet barely made a sound against the smooth crystal floor. Through a side door, she stepped out into the frozen night. The human camp stood beyond the palace walls, metallic tents glowing with dim blue lights guarded by armed soldiers. Lyra moved closer, staying in the shadows. She could see Ryan speaking with two other officers near a command terminal. His posture was straight, his expression unreadable. She strained to hear their voices. "The council's delaying everything," one officer said bitterly. "The aliens don't trust us." "Would you?" Ryan replied quietly. "After what we did to them?" Lyra froze. His tone wasn't defensive or proud, and it was filled with guilt. The second officer frowned. "You're too soft, Captain. Don't forget what they did to our people, too." Ryan's voice was steady. "I haven't forgotten anything. But if this peace fails, we'll all lose more than we already have." The conversation ended there as the officers walked away, leaving Ryan alone under the cold alien moon. He looked up at the stars for a long time, as if searching for answers that weren't there. Lyra's heart ached. He wasn't like the others. He wasn't a man driven by hatred or pride. He carried the same scars she did, and invisible but deep. She turned to leave, but a sudden noise made her freeze. A metallic clang echoed behind her on one of the guards. A flashlight beam swept through the shadows, catching the edge of her cloak. "Who's there?" A voice barked in human language. Lyra's pulse raced. She ducked behind a crate, holding her breath. The beam moved closer, then past. When the guard turned away, she slipped silently back toward the palace, her heart pounding. By the time she reached her chambers, dawn was breaking. Her cloak was dusted with frost, her cheeks flushed from the cold. Tira rushed to her side. Your Highness? You shouldn't have gone. Lyra sank into her chair, exhausted. He's not like the others, Tira. Captain Ryan. He defends peace, even when his people don't listen. Tira frowned. You trust a human? Lyra looked toward the window where the first rays of sunlight touched the snow. I trust what I saw in his eyes. Later that day, the council gathered again. Rumors of spies and secret plans began to spread. The humans suspected that the aliens were hiding advanced weapons. The aliens whispered that humans were preparing for another attack. Peace was slipping away like sand through fingers. During the meeting, one of the alien generals slammed his hand on the table. We have intercepted human transmissions. They're preparing something in their camp. Something they won't tell us. All eyes turned toward the human side. Admiral Keen's face hardened. Those are lies. Before anyone could argue further, Lyra's calm voice cut through the noise. If we seek peace, then both sides must show honesty. Let the humans open their data, and we will do the same. There was silence. Keen's eyes narrowed. You speak boldly for your age, Princess. Ryan, who stood beside him, shifted slightly, his gaze moving toward her again. For a brief moment, she thought she saw something like respect in his eyes, or perhaps understanding. That night, Lyra couldn't sleep. The unease in the palace grew thicker. She walked to the ancient war archives below the main hall, a place filled with holograms of old battles. Her footsteps echoed in the vast dim chamber. As she studied the glowing maps of the war, she felt a presence behind her. She turned quickly. Ryan stood in the shadows, his uniform dark, his face serious. Princess, he said quietly. You shouldn't be down here alone. Lyra's heart leapt. Captain Hale, how did you— I could ask you the same, he interrupted softly. You were near our camp last night. Her breath caught. He knew. I needed to see the truth, she said, meeting his eyes. I needed to know if humans still hate us. Ryan stepped closer, his voice low. Not all of us do. The air between them was charged, tense, fragile, and full of unspoken memories neither dared to name. Lyra looked into his eyes, her voice trembling. You once saved an alien child during the war, didn't you? He hesitated, eyes narrowing slightly as if pulling an old memory from the dark. I saved many. I don't remember their faces anymore. Her lips parted to speak, but before she could say another word, a loud alarm blared through the palace, a piercing red light filling the corridor. Ryan's hand went to his weapon instantly. What's happening? Lyra turned toward the hall, her pulse pounding. Someone's breached the archives. And as they ran side by side toward the source of the alarm, neither realized that this night, this single moment would change everything between them. The blaring alarm echoed through the crystal corridors, bouncing off the tall walls of the alien palace. Red lights flashed, turning the calm halls into rivers of chaos. Princess Lyra ran beside Captain Ryan, their footsteps ringing in perfect rhythm. Guards rushed past them, shouting orders in both alien and human tongues. The peace conference had turned into confusion in mere seconds. They reached the lower archive hall. Massive doors made of translucent stone, now cracked and half open. Inside, the security lights flickered wildly. Smoke drifted in the air. A guard lay unconscious near the entrance, his armor scorched. Lyra's heart jumped. Is he alive? She asked, kneeling beside the fallen soldier. Ryan checked the guard quickly. Yes, just stunned. Energy blast and not human. Lyra stood, her silver gown now dusted with ash. Then who did this? Before Ryan could answer, the main console in the room sparked and a hologram flickered to life, files of classified war records floating in the air. Someone had tried to steal them. Ryan frowned, tapping at the panel. The logs say it was accessed from inside. By an alien code. Lyra's blood ran cold. That can't be right. Only royal access can open this archive. Their eyes met. Neither wanted to say what they were both thinking. Someone close to her, maybe even in her council, had betrayed them. Guards arrived moments later, surrounding the hall. One of them, General Varric, stepped forward, his eyes sharp with suspicion. What is this human doing here? He barked. Princess, you know the treaty forbids them from entering our private sectors. Lyra turned sharply. He came with me. He was helping. Helping? Varric's tone dripped with disbelief. Or spying? Ryan's hand twitched toward his weapon. But Lyra's soft voice stopped him. Enough, he's not our enemy. The general's gaze hardened. You defend him too easily, Princess. You forget who destroyed our cities, her patience snapped. and you forget who's trying to rebuild them. For a tense moment, silence hung between them. The other guards hesitated, unsure who to obey. Finally, Varric bowed stiffly and stepped back. As you wish, Your Highness. But be careful whom you trust. Humans wear masks well. When they were alone again, Ryan exhaled slowly. He's not wrong to doubt me. Lyra shook her head. He's wrong to judge you by others' sins. Ryan studied her for a long moment, his voice low. You defend me, even though my kind destroyed half your world? Her eyes softened. Because once one of your kind saved me. He froze. What did you say? Lyra looked down, her fingers tightening on the pendant around her neck. You saved me, Ryan. He blinked, confused. What? She took a slow breath, stepping closer until the flickering blue light of the consoles painted her face in shadows. It was during the siege of Loria. I was a child, trapped under the ruins of my home. A human soldier pulled me free and told me to run. You had the same eyes, the same voice. Ryan stared at her, the words hitting him like distant echoes. He tried to remember. The smoke, the screams, the child he'd carried from the flames. It was a face he had seen in dreams for years, a memory buried under the weight of guilt and war. You, he whispered. You were that child. Lyra nodded, her eyes glistening. I never forgot you. Ryan took a step back as if struggling to breathe. All these years. I thought she died. I thought everyone there died. A soft silence fell between them, broken only by the hum of damaged consoles. The weight of that memory pressed heavy on both of them, two lives forever linked by one act of mercy. Lyra looked up at him, her voice trembling. Why didn't you say anything before? Ryan shook his head. Because I didn't know. I didn't let myself remember. After the war, I tried to forget everything. Everything we lost. She reached out slowly, placing her hand over his, hesitant, unsure, but full of warmth. You didn't lose everything. You saved me. For a brief moment, the walls between their worlds seemed to fade. He looked into her eyes, seeing not a princess or an alien, but the frightened girl he had once saved, now standing strong and radiant. But the fragile peace shattered when footsteps thundered down the corridor. General Varric returned, followed by armed soldiers. His face was dark with anger. I warned you, Princess, he said coldly. Our sensors detected this human near the restricted archive. He has breached security. He must be detained. Ryan moved protectively in front of Lyra. You're making a mistake, Varric sneered. Am I? Then why were you alone with her, human? What are you hiding? Lyra stepped forward. He's innocent. I ordered him here. Varric's tone hardened. Then you endanger us both. The council will hear of this. Ryan's eyes darted between them. You'll turn peace into war over a misunderstanding? Varric ignored him and gestured to his guards. Take him! Lyra's voice cracked as she shouted, No! But before she could stop them, two soldiers seized Ryan's arms. He didn't fight back, only looked at her with calm, steady eyes, the same eyes that once told her to run through fire. It's all right, he said softly. Let them do what they must. As they dragged him away, Lyra's chest ached with helplessness. The man who once saved her life was now being treated as a traitor. The humans would demand answers. Her people would call for war. And all she could do was stand in silence as he disappeared down the corridor. The flickering lights dimmed again, leaving her alone in the half-ruined archive. Her hand still trembling in the cold air, she whispered into the emptiness, I found you again, and I'm already losing you. Outside, thunder rolled across the frozen sky, not from storms but from the rumble of warships preparing for flight. The peace they had built was beginning to crack. The next morning, the palace of Alaris Prime was silent, but it was not peace that filled the air. It was tension, thick and unspoken. Rumors spread through every corridor like fire. The human captain has been arrested. The princess was seen defending him. The council demands answers. Princess Lyra stood on her balcony, watching the twin suns rise over the icy horizon. The light reflected off the snow like silver glass, but even its beauty couldn't calm the storm inside her heart. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Captain Ryan Hale being dragged away, his calm eyes meeting hers one last time before the doors closed between them. A sharp knock broke the stillness. General Varric entered, his armor gleaming coldly. Your Highness, he said stiffly, the council demands your presence. They await your explanation for last night's breach. Lyra turned slowly. And Ryan? Captain Hale, Varric said with disdain, is being held in the lower cells until we determine whether he's a spy. Her hands clenched. He's not a spy, General. Varric's expression didn't change. That is for the Council to decide and not you. Without another word, he turned and left. Lyra stared at the closed door for a long moment, her heart heavy with anger and fear. Then she made her decision. She could not let them destroy the only man who had ever shown her true kindness. Not again. She changed into a plain cloak, her royal insignia hidden. Moving through the palace's secret corridors, she avoided guards and cameras. The path to the prison was dark and narrow, but she knew it well. These tunnels had once been escape routes during the war. At last she reached the lower cells. The air was cold, heavy with the hum of energy shields. A single guard stood near Ryan's cell, his eyes half closed with boredom. Lyra pressed a small device on her wrist, releasing a faint pulse of light. The guard's eyes rolled back, and he slumped silently to the ground, asleep. She slipped inside. Ryan sat on the floor of the small cell, his hands bound in glowing restraints. He looked up when she entered, surprise flickering in his eyes. "Princess Lyra," he said quietly, "I was wondering how long before you'd come." Lyra's heart twisted at his calmness. "I'm getting you out," she whispered. Ryan shook his head. "You shouldn't be here. If they find you, I don't care." She stepped closer, her voice trembling. "They think you're a traitor." "They'll execute you if I don't act. You saved me once. I won't let you die for saving me again." For a moment, Ryan just looked at her, really looked at her, as if seeing the frightened child she once was, now standing tall and defiant. "Lyra," he said softly, "you're risking everything. Your title, your people's trust." "I already lost their trust the moment I defended you," she interrupted. "So what's left to lose?" Her hands moved quickly over the energy locks, entering override codes only she knew. The shackles released with a low hum. Ryan rubbed his wrists, his expression torn between gratitude and concern. "You shouldn't do this," he said again. Lyra met his eyes. "And you shouldn't have saved me all those years ago." "But you did." For a heartbeat, silence filled the small cell. Then Ryan smiled faintly, the first real smile she had seen from him. "You haven't changed," he said softly. "Still stubborn. And you're still too noble for your own good." She handed him a dark cloak. "Put this on. We need to move before the guards wake." They slipped out of the cell and into the tunnels. Alarms hadn't sounded yet, but Lyra knew it was only a matter of time. Their footsteps echoed faintly in the narrow corridors. Somewhere above them, the council was probably debating her fate already. When they reached the surface, cold wind lashed at their faces. The twin moons were high, bathing the frozen plains in pale light. Ryan stopped, looking around. "Where will we go?" "There's an old transport bay on the west ridge," Lyra said. "It's not guarded anymore. We can hide there until I figure out what to do." He frowned. "You're not coming with me, are you?" Lyra froze. "You think I would send you away alone after everything?" "Lyra," he said gently, "if they catch you with me, you'll be branded a traitor too." Her voice broke slightly. "Then let them. I'd rather be a traitor than live knowing I let you die." For a moment, the world around them seemed to vanish. Just two souls standing beneath the frozen sky, torn between duty and something far deeper. Ryan reached out, brushing his fingers against hers. "You shouldn't care this much," he whispered. "Our worlds don't allow it." Her eyes shimmered with tears. "Maybe our worlds are wrong." Before either could say more, a sharp sound cut through the night, the distant whine of search drones. Red lights blinked across the horizon. "They're coming," Ryan said urgently. "We have to move." They ran across the icy fields, their cloaks whipping in the wind. The lights grew closer behind them, the hum of engines filling the air. Lyra's lungs burned, her breath misting in the cold. Ryan glanced back, then grabbed her hand. "This way!" They dove into a narrow ravine, pressing against the frozen rocks as the drone swept past overhead. Their lights flashed above like red stars before fading into the distance. For a moment, everything was still again. Lyra turned to Ryan, her voice a whisper. "If you stay, they'll kill you. If you leave..." He looked into her eyes, finishing the sentence for her. "You'll be alone again." They stood there, breaths mingling in the cold air. Two enemies turned allies, hearts beating in the same rhythm. Finally, Ryan spoke. "Whatever happens next, Princess." "Thank you." Lyra smiled sadly. "Don't thank me yet. The hardest part is still ahead." And as they vanished into the night, the first distant sounds of pursuit echoed behind them. The beginning of a chase that would change the fate of both their worlds forever. Snowflakes drifted through the cold night air as Princess Lyra and Captain Ryan Hale moved across the frozen wasteland of Alaris Prime. Their breaths came in quick clouds, mixing with the icy wind. The twin moons hung above them, ghostly and silent, lighting their path through the endless white. Behind them, the faint hum of search drones echoed, distant but growing louder. Lyra's cloak whipped around her as she glanced back. "They're faster than I thought," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Ryan adjusted the small scanner on his wrist, its screen flickering with red dots. "We've got 6 drones in pursuit, maybe more behind them. They'll track us by heat signatures if we stay out here." She frowned. "There's a cave system north of here. Old mining tunnels from before the war. We can hide there until dawn." Ryan nodded, tightening his cloak. "Lead the way." They moved quickly, their boots crunching through the snow. Lyra's heart pounded, not just from fear, but from the weight of what she had done. A princess of the Alaran Empire, running through the dark with a human fugitive. Every law, every tradition told her this was treason. But when she looked at Ryan, she didn't see an enemy. She saw the same man who had once saved a terrified little girl from the flames of war. The wind howled around them, carrying faint echoes of engines. Ryan's sharp eyes scanned the distance. "We're being flanked," he said. "They're trying to corner us." Lyra's pulse quickened. "Then we don't have much time." They slid down a frozen ridge, landing hard on the rocky ground below. In the distance, faint blue lights glowed, the entrance to the old mines. "This way!" Lyra shouted over the wind. They sprinted toward the tunnel, the sound of drones growing louder. Laser beams cut through the darkness, slicing into the snow around them. Ryan turned, firing his blaster at one of the hovering machines. The shot hit clean, and the drone exploded in a flash of sparks. "Go!" he yelled. Lyra stumbled as another blast hit nearby, sending ice shards flying. Ryan caught her arm and pulled her into the tunnel just as another laser scorched the ground behind them. Inside, the air was damp and cold, the walls glittering faintly with frozen minerals. They ran deeper until the sound of engines faded away. Only the echo of their footsteps remained. Lyra leaned against the wall, gasping for breath. "That was close." Ryan nodded, his face calm but his breathing heavy. "Too close. They're not giving up easily." He activated a small light, casting a pale glow over the cavern. The tunnel stretched endlessly ahead, twisting into darkness. "Where does this lead?" he asked. Lyra hesitated. "The old mines connect to an abandoned transport station on the far side of the ridge. If we can reach it, we might find a way off this planet." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Off the planet?" She nodded. "There's an old diplomatic shuttle stored there. It's old, but it still flies." For a moment, Ryan was silent. Then he said softly, "You're risking everything for me." Lyra looked at him, her eyes steady. "I'm not doing this just for you. I'm doing it for what you represent." He frowned. "And what's that?" "Hope," she said simply. "A reminder that not all humans are the monsters my people believe they are." Ryan smiled faintly. "And not all aliens are what my people fear." Their eyes met, 2 worlds in one gaze, and something unspoken passed between them. A warmth that defied the cold around them. Before either could speak, the sound of faint footsteps echoed through the tunnel. Lyra froze. Ryan turned off the light instantly. Shadows moved near the entrance, dark shapes with glowing visors. "Search team," Ryan whispered. "They must have tracked us through the heat trails." Lyra's mind raced. "There's a side passage ahead. If we move quietly, we can lose them." They crept deeper into the tunnel, their footsteps barely making a sound. The air grew colder, the walls narrower. Every echo made Lyra's heart race. Suddenly, a beam of light swept across the cavern. "There!" a voice shouted. Ryan grabbed Lyra's hand, pulling her into a narrow crevice between 2 rock walls. Blaster fire lit up the darkness. Energy bolts struck the walls around them, sending flashes of light bouncing off the stone. Ryan returned fire, each shot precise and controlled. "Keep moving," he shouted. They slipped through a narrow opening, emerging into a vast underground chamber filled with old mining machinery. The air was thick with dust. Lyra stumbled, but Ryan caught her again. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded weakly. "I will be." They ran toward a staircase leading upward. The tunnel above opened to a faint light. Dawn. But as they climbed, a sharp sound echoed behind them, the click of a weapon charging. "Stop right there," a cold voice commanded. They turned slowly. A figure stood at the base of the stairs, General Varric. His armor gleamed in the dim light, and a line of soldiers stood behind him. Lyra's blood went cold. "Varric." His expression was unreadable. "You've dishonored your crown, Your Highness. Harboring a human fugitive, betraying your people's trust, and all for what? A memory?" Ryan stepped in front of her. "If you want someone to blame, blame me." But Varric shook his head. "No, Captain. The princess made her choice, and now she'll face the consequences." He raised his weapon. Lyra's heart pounded as she stepped between them. "No," she shouted. "If you want to kill him, you'll have to go through me." The chamber fell silent. Even the wind outside seemed to stop. Varric hesitated, his eyes flickering with conflict, and something else. Pity, perhaps. Then in a low voice he said, "So be it." The soldiers raised their blasters. Ryan grabbed Lyra's arm. "Run!" The world exploded in flashes of light and sound. Blaster fire tore through the air as the two of them sprinted up the stairs, barely dodging the shots. The exit loomed ahead, sunlight breaking through the icy mist. As they burst out into the open air, Ryan looked back. The soldiers were still chasing them, but they had made it this far. Lyra gasped, her eyes wide with fear and determination. "We can't stop now," she said. "Not until we're free," Ryan nodded. "Then let's finish this." And together they disappeared into the rising sun, hunted but unbroken. Somewhere behind them, the first spark of rebellion had begun. The morning light broke across the frozen plains, turning the white snow into a field of gold. The sun rose quietly over the icy horizon. But for Princess Lyra and Captain Ryan Hale, there was no peace in its warmth. They had been running all night, every step a race against time. Their breath came in sharp bursts, the cold biting at their skin. When they finally reached the old transport station, Lyra collapsed beside a broken metal pillar, gasping for air. The once bustling outpost was now silent, a graveyard of forgotten machines. Rusted shuttles lay half buried under snow, their hulls glinting faintly in the morning light. Ryan scanned the area cautiously. "We're clear for now," he said. "But they'll find us soon." Lyra nodded weakly. "We have to reach the shuttle bay. There's an old diplomatic ship stored underground. My father used it years ago for secret missions." Ryan frowned. "And it still works?" "Only one way to find out." They moved through the abandoned structure, their footsteps echoing in the silence. Each corridor felt like a memory frozen in time. Broken signs, shattered windows, the faint hum of machines long asleep. Lyra's eyes flickered with recognition. "I used to come here as a child," she said softly. "Before the war. My father brought me here to watch the launches. I thought space was full of peace back then." Ryan gave a quiet smile. "And now?" She looked at him. "Now I know peace is something you have to fight for, sometimes against your own people." They reached a large blast door covered in frost. Lyra pressed her palm against a small scanner. The light flickered, then turned green. With a groan, the door slid open, revealing a dimly lit hangar. At the center stood a small silver shuttle, half covered with dust. Ryan's eyes widened. "You weren't kidding. It's old," Lyra admitted, "but it can still fly." They stepped inside, activating the main control panel. The engines hummed weakly, coming to life. Lyra began entering launch codes while Ryan checked the systems. "Fuel cells are low," he said, "but it should get us to orbit." "Good," she replied, her hands moving quickly over the controls. "Once we reach the neutral zone, we can contact the Alliance." Ryan turned to her. "And then what?" "You can't go back. Your council will brand you a traitor." Lyra's gaze softened. "I already am, Ryan, but if we can reach the Alliance and tell them the truth, maybe it won't be for nothing." He frowned. "The truth?" Lyra hesitated, then reached into her cloak. She pulled out a small glowing crystal, the same one she had taken from her father's chamber the night before. "This," she said quietly, "is the proof that everything about the war was a lie." Ryan stared at it. "What do you mean?" Lyra's voice trembled as she spoke. "The Council has always told us that humans attacked us first, that they came to steal our resources. But this crystal, it's a memory archive. My father recorded the truth before he died. She activated the crystal. A holographic projection flickered to life, an image of the late king of Alaris standing in his royal robes. His voice filled the shuttle. Ryan's jaw tightened. So the Elleran Empire started it. Lyra nodded slowly. My people were the aggressors, and when my father tried to stop it, they killed him. They said it was an accident,